Great, thank you, Joe. Not just for the introduction there, but also for all that you've done to make these meetings possible. Really, I hope that those of you in the audience are finding these to be useful, and really they're only possible due to all the efforts of Joe and the rest of the IT staff. So many thanks to all of you. Again, thank you guys for taking time out of your day to come and chat with us. I wish we could see all of you, but I trust you can see all of us. And I just want to reiterate how appreciative I am of all that you guys are doing. I know from those involved with the virtual rec, you know, what you're still doing with Wildlife Discovery Center and your team. I've heard from Todd about all the outreach efforts he's making to the youth in the community. You guys are really doing a remarkable job in making the best of a you know, really difficult situation. So I just want you guys to know how much I appreciate what you're doing, and also you know, how grateful I am as Sally shares with me all that you guys continue to do for just how creative you're getting to stay connected to the community. It really does mean a lot to us. And it certainly doesn't go unnoticed either. I've heard a lot of great feedback for all of the online features that you guys have rolled out, not just from the city council, but I've heard it from members of the public and residents of the community as well. So again, keep up the great work. We really do appreciate what you're doing. For those that attended our last virtual Q&A, this really, I think, will be structured very similarly. The goal here is to try to provide some information to all of you that I think is on the minds of staff, perhaps to sort of streamline the Q&A process. After that, I'm happy to turn it over to Deshay and to Sally to, so that they can offer any comments they have. And once we're done, then we will turn it over to the audience, and we're happy to answer any questions that you have, at least to the best of our ability. I'll note again that this is a pretty fluid situation that's evolving fairly quickly. So we may not have all the answers for you today, but we'll answer them to the best of our ability. And if we can't answer something today, we'll certainly get back to you with an answer in the near future when we have one. So with that in mind, I think, you know, first and foremost, as I think all of you know, last week we made the decision in following the direction of the governor when he extended his stay-at-home order through April 30th, that we would be keeping all of our facilities closed to the public at least through that time. So I know that leaves a lot of questions as to what that means for staff, and I'm going to try to answer some of those now. Obviously, first and foremost, that means we are going to have our buildings closed through the remainder of the month. I'm pleased to say and this was reflected in a memo that was sent out on my behalf yesterday, but we do intend to continue processing payroll similar to what was done for the last pay period. I think that was April 3rd that we got paid. So as we you know, begin processing payroll for next week, there will be no changes to sort of the manner in which we're again processing payroll both for full-time and part-time employees. I'm also pleased to say that on Monday night, we had our first virtual city council meeting using pretty much the same technology we're looking at here today. And at that meeting, the city council approved a policy sort of memorializing our current payroll practices. So we will continue that, you know, into the future at this point. I can say, you know, none of us know exactly how long this is going to go, but please know that at this point we have no plans to alter from the current payroll plan that we have in place. In regards to what the closure means for individual operations and workloads, you know, this group that we're talking to is a little unique because most of you are operating in specific buildings rather than out in just in the field. As I had already said, our buildings will remain closed. We look forward to seeing new ways that you guys can creatively think of opportunities to touch the community and have your presence still felt out there for all of the patrons of all of our programming. I know for some other areas of the organization, we may look at beginning to slowly ramp up some of the operations, particularly out in the field. But no, for all employees, as we consider ways to potentially, again, reinstitute some of our services, those decisions will only be made with the health and welfare of our employees put first and foremost. So if I'm not comfortable, if the department head's not comfortable that it can be done in a way that keeps our employees safe and protected as well as the public, then we won't do that. But as we realize now that this is extending out a little longer than we had initially envisioned, we are going to begin having some of those conversations about where there are opportunities to safely begin resuming some operations out in the field. For a lot of our rec-related facilities, I know as this came up the last time we did a virtual Q&A, and I think the message remains the same, that I think we will be following the school's lead on when to open. I continue to have regular communications with the superintendents, both here in Lake Forest and in Lake Bluff. They have not committed to extending their closures beyond April 30th at this point. I would say in confidence that I think there's a likelihood it extends beyond April 30th. But at this point, we just don't know. But as I reiterated a week ago, or whenever we did this last, we simply cannot become the child care for the entire community with the schools closed. It's not fair to ask of all of you, and we want to make sure you're staying safe and staying healthy too. So we will be working in tandem with the schools, and when they're ready to resume, then that's when I envision us being able to open as well. Another update that I thought I would provide, as again this continues to extend out further than we maybe had initially thought, I will be working with our finance director and her team to look at modeling for the financial impacts of this crisis on the city's fiscal health. There's no question that we are being negatively impacted from a revenue perspective. That's probably not news to this group, because our programming fees are one of the areas where we're going to be taking the biggest hit. But having said that, I can also state, in confidence and without any hyperbole, that Lake Forest is as well situated to weather this storm from a financial perspective as any municipality in the state of Illinois. And again, that's a real credit to our staff and a lot of the budgeting practices and principles that have been adhered to over the years. And so I feel very good that we're going to continue to be able to get through this. We might have to in the future look at our capital programs. Will there be some deferred or suspended projects this year? It's possible. It's too early to say definitively what that'll look like, but I can state at this point, I do not believe that there will be a need to look at our operating budgets, looking at staffing or personnel. So I remain very confident that we can get through this without having to worry about, again, looking at personnel. Lastly, I did want to just highlight a memo that I sent out last week regarding the FFCRA, and I will, as I've said in other group sessions, defer to Deshay on reminding everyone what that acronym stands for. We sent that out. Not a lot of it may be applicable to this group, but we did exempt a lot of specific employee groups, and I just wanted to share that we're doing our best to take care of all of our employees, and I hope people have that sense. But for some departments, we also have to make sure that we take seriously our responsibility to continue emergency operations and to keep our staffing levels where they need to be. So, for those that have any issues, I'm sure our department heads can work individually with specific employees if it's appropriate to try to work through some of those issues. But But anyway, more to come, and I'm sure Deshay may have something she would want to share or expand upon, I should say, as well. And so I think that pretty well covers where we're at. I'm sure you guys have questions, so I'm going to turn it over to Deshay and then to Sally, and then once they're done, we're happy to answer any questions for you that we can. So Deshay?
Okay, hello everybody. As I've said in other meetings, I look forward to being able to actually see you guys again at some point in person. Couple things. First of all, thank you all for what you're doing. I'm just amazed at how creative you've been with your programs that you're offering and virtually and everything. It's just wonderful. And also another shout out to IT for enabling us to do this. And also to my staff. Amber is going to be reading the questions, but she has worked tirelessly to get that website up. I hope you're using it, and I hope you find it helpful. Couple of things. First, the FFCRA, that stands for Families First Coronavirus Response Act. It's a mouthful. And that basically opens up emergency family and medical leave for anyone who's been employed with us for 30 days. It is strictly for child care issues. It is not for anything else. First 10 days are unpaid. After that, then it also adds some paid sick leave, 2 weeks worth of paid sick leave. They've been issuing regulations on what they really meant to tell us the first time when they issued this. So just we're working, we've been, Finance and I have been working, trying to figure it out, how it's going to work. I know we're going to be setting up some special pay codes. I've got a policy almost finished, although we've heard they may come out with some more regulations. But anyway, we're working hard to get it out to you. It's just quite confusing. So once we do, we'll do our best to make it as unconfusing as possible for you if you need to use it. The other thing I wanted to mention, and this is brand new, it's from the CARES Act. I don't even remember what that stands for, but that is that they've made some changes to the flexible spending program, and that you will be able to now use the Flex program for over-the-counter medications. And for those of you who've been around a while and working with that program, you know we used to be able to use it for over-the-counter medications, but they took that away a few years back, and now they've added it back in during this time. I hope to have more information, and apparently they said it could take a couple of months for providers like the pharmacies or wherever you're buying your meds to figure out how to get the program working. So you may have to submit paper forms, claim forms, but in the meantime, we're working on having a call later this afternoon to try and figure out some of this stuff in more detail. The other thing is, if you participate in the dependent care portion of the Flex program, because of the closing of the daycare facilities, or you know, if your daycare provider cannot help you right now, they will allow you to make a change to your election so that you don't lose any money at the end of the year. So that will all be, there's going to be more coming on that, but that's where we are right now. Then let's see, I want to remind you a couple of things. There is, those of you who are full-time might know, with our Think Healthy program, we had a mindfulness and a relaxation program going on at the end of the year last year, right before the holidays. And we have had them put that back on the site for you to utilize. It's not for points or anything like that, but it is there for you to go in and do some deep breathing, do some mindfulness exercises if that helps you get through some of this. So it's there, you just scroll down the main screen a little bit and you'll find it. The other thing is, on Thursday, tomorrow, at lunchtime, we're gonna do a Think Healthy Lunch and Learn. If you sign in with your own name, then you can get some Think Healthy points, 10 Think Healthy points for that. But it's also on our blog if you need the link to go to it. It is going to be with Linda Porter. I know most of you probably don't know Linda, but she's a therapist who works out of the police department. She works with them and the community, but she's offered her services to just talk about what's going on. You know, how are you feeling being isolated like this? I know for me personally, I like to be around people a lot. I gain a lot of energy from social interaction. So to be isolated is kind of tough. So I have to find ways to keep myself healthy. So, you know, she's going to talk about things like that. She's going to answer your questions. Your questions can be submitted anonymously, or you can put your name on it. But if you want Think Healthy points, you do need to sign in with your name. So we have a list of who attended. I hope that you will find that helpful, and I hope that you will attend. Let's see if there's anything else. Oh, vacation. If those of you, if any of you had your vacations canceled because of this, and you will and because of that, it will then put you over the maximum allowed to roll over in a year, which happens on May 1. We are going to allow some rollover. Your department heads are figuring that out, who's going to be impacted by that. And so they're going to get a list to me, so you won't lose it because of this. So I think that's all I have right now. And I'll turn it over to Sally, and then we'll answer your questions.
Hi, everyone. I wish I could see you, but I'm happy to be here in front of you today. I need to echo some big thank yous to IT for not only allowing us to do this, but also allowing us to do some of those virtual classes that we've been doing, and hopefully.
Hey, Sally.
Yeah?
Sally, you're getting a lot of feedback. You're reverberating, at least on my screen.
Okay, thank you. I'll try and talk softer and see if that works. I have to do a big shout out to IT, because not only do they do these webinars for us, but they've also provided us the opportunity to do some virtual classes and teasers, folks, back in IT. We got a couple more we want to do, so I'll be lining that up with you, I hope, in the next couple of days. You know, this staff sticks together. They're a tight team. Brett, CROYA, Dickinson Hall, the whole group. It's been really, really telling how much you guys communicate with each other and work with each other, and the teamwork that goes into our everyday lives. I have to say, I hear from each of your sections on almost a daily basis, and it's wonderful for me to see how much that teamwork is coming together. We, as a group, are a steadying hand for the community. I think we're familiar and we're reassuring, and it kind of gives them a sense of normalcy. So I thank you for continuing to put yourself out via phone call, via web connection, via video posting, Facebook and such, because I think our community is really looking to be able to touch base with some folks that are familiar in this kind of crazy time. So thank you for that. I'm really looking forward to getting back to work whenever it is we can come back into the buildings. I know many of you have questions about what if we can't go back for summer? What will we do about camps? Will we get paid? How are we going to be able to work? I think those are all questions that we're going to be able to answer in the coming weeks, but really don't have an answer for right now, because we're just not quite sure where the governor is going to go with his quarantining expectations. So as we know, we certainly will let you know. It's not something we're going to hold back. We want everybody to be informed and prepared for when we do get to come back. So I think that's key to know. I think we've also had questions about upcoming payrolls, because as you all know, we have staff that come and go throughout the year. Some of our staff is ready to term off because their positions are done in May. That question would be, would we continue to pay them through the summer? And Deshay, please jump in if I'm wrong here. But my thought would be that if your position is coming to an end in May, such as, you know, well, we're not running baseball, but if baseball were coming to an end in May, you would actually term off the payroll because your position would be done. So I hope that it lets people know where we stand.
I agree with that one. Yes.
There are a couple of other questions that have been posed to me that I might need a little help from Jason and Deshay on. One of them is if we remain closed for the summer, but LO Market remains open, will we have additional security measures to keep people off our trail and inside our building for our own employees' safety?
Sure. Yeah, I said where it came from, but it's actually a good question, and I will say, you know, some of the challenges we faced is you know, with this situation evolving so quickly, we haven't always had as much time as we'd like to step back and think big picture about where we're going to be 90 days from now, 120 days from now. But we're finally beginning to get to a point where we can do that. And in regards to what will happen this summer, obviously we're going to remain hopeful and optimistic that we are allowed to open even in some capacity by summertime. But you pose a good question there. If in a hypothetical scenario, Wildlife Discovery Center's operations are still closed to the public, but the LOM market is open, I can't say I have an answer for how we will handle any security issues there. But rest assured, you know, we will think through the appropriate course of action. We'd certainly look for your suggestions too. You know the grounds better than all of us. You know, we would hope you could provide some guidance and suggestions for the most appropriate way to do that. So more to come on that. Hopefully it's a moot point, then we don't have to worry about it. But rest assured, as we transition into future months here, we will work through a lot of the contingencies that need to be understood. And I can just say on a anecdotal level, as a parent of 2 young children, God help us if summer camps aren't open, because it's bad enough trying to be a teacher and take care of them during the school year. I can't even fathom a whole 5 more months of this. So we're fingers crossed that we will have at least maybe not exactly how it looked last year or the year before that, but that we have some sort of modified programming. As I said, not just for all of you, because I know you love your jobs and you miss, you know, the kids, but for the sanity of the parents too. Fingers crossed.
And I just would like to add to that as well, that when we are, we think we're coming back, we're going to work as a team to develop the proper process to come back safely and to come back as fully as we can. But you will all be part of that process. That is not something that we would just decide to throw you back in. It certainly will be conversations going forward with lots of planning and lots of protocol set up.
You sounded much better, Sally. I could understand you early, but you sounded a little creepy, but resolved.
Well, I have been alone for a long time, so.
Well, great. If Sally, if you don't have anything further, this is the point where we're happy to turn it over to the audience and answer any questions that any of you may have. So, Joe, if you want to maybe just give a quick reminder as to how people can ask questions, and then we'll go ahead and answer them to the best of our ability.
Yeah, absolutely. So you do have the ability to ask your questions through the Q&A button. The Q&A button is located on your screen. Just click on that and type your question away, and our panelists will answer it. Again, you do have the ability to submit those questions anonymously by checking that box. Amber, our co-host of the meeting, will read the questions out loud so that everybody has the ability to hear the questions before they're answered. With that, Amber, I think we have a question.
So the first question is more of a statement, and it is, Sally might be a robot. Sally, you're gonna have to watch this back and listen. It's just, things happen.
Who knows, I might be.
It's a hoot. Okay, now the second question was, given that some states have closed schools for the rest of the academic year, example, Washington State, how would that impact the rec department if Lake Forest schools did the same? For instance, when would we consider opening again, given that we would no longer have the school's guidelines to follow?
Yeah, that's a great question. I would say that in that hypothetical scenario, I don't know that we would be compelled or obligated to remain closed throughout the entire summer and then reassess in the fall. My sense is that we would be following the guidance and direction, not just of the governor, but also of local, state, and federal health officials. We are, I don't pretend to be a public health expert. We have a lot of people whom we've been relying on to provide us guidance and direction. And so I think those are the same sources of information that we would rely on, because at the end of the day, we're all eager to get back open. But as Sally alluded to earlier, we do need to make sure that we feel confident we can do so in a safe manner, not just for patrons of the rec center, but for all of you employees. So we're going to get open as soon as we can, but we're not going to rush it at the expense of compromising people's health and safety. And I'm sure Sally will continue to be in regular communications with all of her colleagues, both in other municipal parks and rec departments as well as park districts. And so I'm sure a lot of us are going to be in the same boat. Well, we all will be if schools close for the remainder of the year. And so I'm sure that there will be a lot of coordination and collaboration amongst those entities too. And so Sally, I don't know if there's anything more you wanted to add.
No, I agree with you. I think it's conversations that we'll have to have, and all the while keeping ourselves safe, keeping the staff safe, keeping the patrons safe. And yes, meeting and discussing with the partner agencies that are to our north, and to our south and to our west a little bit, just so that we're all on the same page.
Okay, so the next question was, how are we proceeding with annual reviews?
Shay?
Well, we are proceeding. For those of you who have them done electronically, those have all gone out. They should have gone out. And we talked about this at executive staff meeting this morning, that we will be doing the conferences via Zoom instead of in person, so that we can get them done and on the way, on the way to being processed. We know once we do are able to come back, everybody's going to be so busy trying to catch up and get things up and running again that we wanted to make sure we try and have this done as much as possible so that we can hit the ground running. So, and I'll have to let Sally address, I don't know how you do all of yours, but for those that are on NeoGov, I know those have gone out. Sally, I toss it to you for others.
So those that are not on NeoGov, primarily part-time staff, those will be done via written and then shared, and then a Zoom meeting will be done to have that evaluation, so that there's a connection, and then we'll forward through. So.
Okay, the next question. The mayor announced a state of emergency on Monday morning. It included verbiage that the city council would need to officially extend that declaration for it to continue. Just wanted to see if the city council extended it, and if so, until when?
Yeah, that was something that the council acted on Monday night. I have to admit, I don't recall the particulars of when, for how long they extended it. I think they'll be continuing to review it on a regular basis. It's not just approved or extended in perpetuity. But having said that, a couple comments I'd make on it. First, I sense we'll probably follow the governor's lead to some degree. And when the state of Illinois begins opening back up, or we get direction that they're beginning to open back up, society such that it is businesses then, you know, when it's no longer sort of a declared state of emergency within the state, then we would look to perhaps relax that too. I'd also just add that really the intent behind declaring the state of emergency was to give us some staffing flexibility with some of our collective bargaining agreements, but also just to ensure we may be eligible for potential FEMA reimbursements down the road. In terms of authority needed to continue to operate the city's finances, make emergency purchases, close public spaces, we already had pretty broad authority within the city code to do all of that. And so, you know, I will just sort of say in you know, perfect candor that one of the reasons it was done too was just symbolically to send a message to the community that they need to take this seriously. But certainly we expect to continue it, obviously, at least through April 30th. And if it extends beyond that, we'll make sure we communicate it out.
Okay, the next question. Thank you for this Q&A. If the rec is closed beyond May, if schools remain closed, will this also include the fitness center?
So I think the fitness center is something we will end up taking separately based, it doesn't necessarily run based on the school calendar. It's primarily adults within the fitness center. I believe there will probably be pretty strict protocols in order to open and come back. Looking at other countries that have finally started to open, there have been everything from temperature taking to limited amount of people in the gym at time per square foot. So I think that is something that we will take on its own as we go forward, not necessarily connected to the school closures, but definitely based on the state and local health recommendations, because again, the priority is health and safety.
There are no other open questions.
Okay, well, sometimes I know there's a last minute one that comes in, so I'll just talk for a minute, and if there's still no questions, then we'll call it a day. But I'll just leave by again saying that we are incredibly appreciative of all that you guys are doing, for checking in on your patrons, for thinking again very creatively about how you can still provide some service to the public. You guys are just doing a remarkable job. So thank you so much for all that you're doing, and keep up the great work.
I agree, and I hope that some of you will join us tomorrow at lunch to figure out how to relieve some of these stressors, some things you can do. Although this group, you know, you're the workout group, you're the healthy group, so you're probably doing a lot of those things, but there may be other things in the background. So I do hope that you'll join us.
And I concur. Sometimes though, we are busy taking care of others and we forget to take care of ourselves. So please make sure that you are taking care of yourselves, because when I do see you again, I want to see happy, healthy people. Looking forward to that sooner rather than later.
All right, well, if Amber, if there are no other questions, then again, thank you everybody for your time today. Stay safe, stay healthy, and we'll check back in soon.
Thank you, everybody.
Thank you all.
Thanks, everyone. Bye.